up because
Hi, anyone who caught the little beginning of that, sorry, I caught Reverend Laura González off guard. This is my close friend, I hope. I love you so much, Reverend Laura González from the Circle Sanctuary, and my boss at Circle Sanctuary Network Podcasts. So Laura, and you do so much. I'm like, what do I start with? You know, the BlueWitch, all the readings that you do. You're an educator, and you do well. First of all, let's talk about how you and I met and the podcasting that you did.
and how funny it is that how the tables have turned now, and now I'm the manager and you are part of the wonderful team that we have at CSMP. So Pam and I met around 2015 when I was called back to be part of Pagans Tonight Radio. And she offered me, like, whatever you want to do, we want you to come back. You want to do a crossover, you want to do in English, you want to do Spanish, whatever you want to do. And then I say, I don't want to do a whole lot. So why don't I do 2 in English and 2 in Spanish, which actually is a whole lot. So she helped me figure out the name and the slogan. And so Lunatic Mondays, Lunes Lunaticos was born. And the catchphrase where we say, why should Fridays have all the fun? Go crazy on Monday with Laura González and Lunatic Mondays. That's Pam. She created that slogan, and it has been since 2015. And then, of course, that station ceased to exist. And then we moved to, well, I moved with my podcast to CSMP. And I've been part of Circle Sanctuary since 2017 officially. But, you know, I've known Selena since like 2011. And
That's funny. I started in 2011 with Selena too. That's really
yep, yeah, we all met kind of at the same time. And I was part of the team for a few years. Officially, the station was born in 2019, but I remember that we started working on it in 2018. And last year, we went through some structural changes. Structural changes, that's so hard to say. And then I was offered the position of the station manager. And then I told them everything I learned from Pam. So coming over, and I fought tooth and nail. I wanted Pam on my team. And she is now obviously a base, pivotal piece of our team because she works directly with Reverend Selena Fox on all her work and podcasts and this and that and the other. So I'm thrilled that you are part of the team. And it's funny, no, because you were my manager and now I'm your manager. But I mean, we're friends and we're a team. More than anything, I love that we are a team and that everybody pulls their weight. And when you have a wonderful group of people that are all on the same wavelength, that they want to get things done, we get things done. And it's very easy. And it's almost like, since I'm a manager at the station, I'm working less.
Yes. Lord Don from the Corellians used to tell me when I did the Pagans Tonight, he says, I just want you to make the trains run on time. I'm like, okay, that's my job, make the trains run on time. But I do believe that there's a lot of coaching and support, because I thank you so much for giving me credit, because I helped with the slogan, but you made Lunatic Mondays, and you made it a very important podcast for not just the English speaking pagans and witches, but the Spanish speaking pagans and witches. And the crossover was really good, because I know a lot of people who may have been raised, who may have roots that are Latino, Latina, may not have really good Spanish language skills, and they enjoyed having the two. And you made it. I mean, my job was easy. Hey, why don't you do this? Okay, cool. You like that? Let people do.
It has been great because they were alternated Mondays. So people will tune in on not their Monday and they will stay and listen, and they I have a bunch of people that told me, you know, I'm learning Spanish, I'm catching up. I'm like, because they know my intonation, they know my voice. And then when they hear it in Spanish, oh, I think she's talking about this and that. And then on the witchy lingo, the witchy language, we have a lot of crossover. And there's a lot of words that don't translate. They just don't translate. And we, you know, like an app is an app, you know, and then they don't call it aplicación in Spanish, they just say app. Or this, or a screenshot, you know, a screenshot is a screenshot. And, you know, because they are technical languages. It's a technical language and it translates. But it was so bittersweet when I had to let go of the Lunes Lunáticos part, the Spanish part. But I have magic on my time management skills, but I was pushing too hard. So I need to let go of 2 shows, which was like half of my programming, right? So I'm still doing Spanish shows. I still do Paganos del Mundo. I'm going to do it at least 4 times a year. So I will still have shows on Spanish. And now on CSMP, we have shows on Spanish and Portuguese. So we are actually covering a broader aspect of the pagan community. And it's fantastic to have now the Portuguese language added to the station. It has been since day one, by the way. Paganos del Mundo has existed since 2019, and we have collaborators, Harwood Tuileva from Spain, Carolina Amor, who is from Argentina but lives in the United States, Monica Gobin in Argentina, from Argentina, Cristian Ortiz in Mexico, and then myself from Mexico but live in the United States, and Patricia, that is from Brazil, Patricia Finkler. So it's great to have all those many languages to serve the Spanish speaking and Portuguese speaking communities on the world, you know, because we're not the same.
We're not the same. Let's go into talking about language. And I asked you beforehand because it's not up to somebody to educate, but you can always ask somebody. So I'm asking you to help educate people who would be listening tonight. And you graciously accepted. So thank you so much.
Of course.
Let's do a little history lesson. Okay, we know Portugal, they speak Portuguese, but a lot of people think that when you're talking about the Americas, the continents, that anyone Spanish, it's only Spanish speaking, or you know, there's some French and English, but they don't understand that. I can't remember what year it was, like 1538 or something. There was a line drawn by the Pope saying, okay, I'm going to go ahead and let you have the New World, but from this line, it's going to be Portugal. And from this line, it's going to be Spain. Poor Portugal. They didn't know what they were. We didn't have a good map of what was coming with the New World. So Brazil, that's why you have the Portuguese speaking population in Brazil, because that was run by Portugal. Mm-hmm. And then the rest of the Americas, good or bad, the Spanish came in and took over. And that's like one of the other things that I wanted to have a conversation with you about, but I'm going to take a step back. Let's talk about language that we're going to agree upon, because we need to have discussions. So the best part of a language, having these discussions, is to agree upon the language, what makes people comfortable ahead of time. I've used Hispanic. Not everybody's Mexican. Come on, people. Spanish. I've gone to Spanish language speakers is what I like to use, and then I like to do Latino. And I've been told don't use Latinx. So please school me on what you agree, what you're comfortable with, and why. What are the different nuances?
So I'm gonna go to the very beginning, and I'm gonna tell you, I love to educate people. Venmo is BlueWitch. Show some love if you have it. I am one of the people who is a Mexican indigenous woman, immigrant, brown, fat, queer, vegan, right? I choose to educate people because I love sharing knowledge. I am a witch, I'm a pagan, I'm a minister, but I think my true vocation is education. Oh, that rhymed. So I love educating people, and I have learned from all the educators and creators on TikTok that, you know, if you want to show some love, hey, there's my Venmo. If you like what you hear and you want to put some Venmo on BlueWitch, go for it. With that said, it is my pleasure to share this knowledge, especially with you. And I will say from the get-go, I do not like to be called Hispanic at all, because Hispanic are the people from Spain. Our language is Spanish, which is also the nationality of the people from Spain. So when they call us Hispanic or Spanish, when you call me Spanish, you're calling me a language. And when you're calling me Hispanic, you're calling me if I was from Spain. And no, thank you. Colonizers will colonize, and that's what they did, right? They come and colonize, and take it, it's only the colonizer mind, the one that can tell you, you are no longer your people, but you are not us. You are a completely different race of human, as if that was possible. And they call us mestizos, and they detribalized us. And that is a whole can of worms that we will need like 3 hours to talk about, so I'm not gonna go there. So most Mexicans, we are detribalized, though we still have a lot of indigenous people who have roots and connection to the tribes and their pueblos and their peoples, and they are indigenous, right? But they are a specific name for their group of people. So you have the Purepecha, you have the Quechua, you have the, I don't know, different ones. I am from Mexico City. My family is detribalized. We don't know which tribes, where people we come from. And because I'm from Mexico City, the indigenous peoples that I identify with as being part of is the Mesoamerican people, or the Mexica people, or the Mexica Tenochca people. I learn, and I am active on a community here in Chicago that is trying to not reconstruct, not reclaim, but evoke those traditions and learn from the philosophies. So I'm part of that. And I'm a musician, actually, because I don't dance, but I'm playing the instruments, and I try to sing a little. And obviously share also my knowledge. So when it comes to identifiers, if you don't need to know where the person is from, they're just a person. But if you're all talking about your nationalities, your culture, where you come from, it is highly appreciated if it is within the conversation frame. If somebody asks you, so where are you from? What's your nationality? Right? And a lot of people that might look like me will say, I'm American. They will say, I'm from the United States, right? I'm American. Leave it there. Because you have Mexicans, you have immigrants, you have Mexican Americans, second generation, third generation. I mean, none of us are the same, even the Mexicans. Mexican from Mexico, Mexican American, not the same. So out of the good of two evils, the best of two evils, I would rather be called Latina or Latino or Latinx. I don't know why you were told not to use Latinx. I don't see anything wrong with it. Because Latina is female, Latino is male, Latinx is gender neutral. People in Mexico or elsewhere in America, South America, are using Latine. I would rather be addressed as Mexican, because that's my cultural identity, right? Me, Laura. But like you say, not everybody's Mexican. So out of the two, between Hispanic and Latino, I would rather be called Latino or Latina or Latinx. Latino is the generalized, because everything in Spanish is gendered. And when you generalize, you use the masculine, because patriarchy and oppression, because colonizers will colonize. So Latino is the most common one.
Oh, you broke up a little bit. I don't know if it's on my
I'm
side or
sorry.
not, but you oppression. That's a good place to break up for a second, because we need to put you're saying when you're saying Latino, because the language.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I had a really unstable connection for a second. So let's go ahead and stop for a second, restart from here. So we were talking about, sorry about that interruption, the internet, Mercury's in retrograde. Shh.
And the internet is going to do what internet does, right?
Exactly. So we were talking about language, and a lot of language, especially the Romance language, the Latin based languages, are patriarchal.
It's
You have the when you're talking about let me tell you a funny story. Do you mind? I speak German.
Can we pause this for 1 second?
Sure.
All right.
Oh, pause the recording. Let me stop.
Yeah.
Pause the recording. Mercury, Mercury, Mercury.
I know.
I don't get it, Mercury. You just have to go with the punches. You got to just
Yeah, go with the flow. Go with the flow.
So
you were gonna
here's
tell us a story about the Latino words.
I was going to tell about language, and I was raised in part in Germany. My father was in the military, and I've been raised in other countries, and Germany is the one that I spent the most time in. So I speak German. And funny, when I try to speak Spanish, which I can speak a poquito, muy poquito, it always comes out in a German accent. So because I speak German, and yeah. So when I was in Germany, I went to go buy a present, and I was speaking in German pretty fluently. And then all of a sudden, the woman at the shop starts going off way too fast for me. And I said, "Nicht so schnell, ich bin Amerikanerin." Now you're taught when you go to Germany, if somebody says something too fast, you say, or you say, "Ich bin Amerikaner," or "Nicht so schnell, ich bin Amerikaner," but they don't teach you the IN, which is the feminine version. And the fact that I knew the feminine version, she just thought that I was there to screw with her. She was like, and I said, I dropped my German altogether. I said, no, I'm American. So those little nuances, the English language loses.
Yeah.
And it's so important in other languages, especially the Latin based languages, which is French, which is Portuguese, which is Spanish. They all have
and
the
that's
same
that's exactly where Latino comes from. So now we have two different connotations for Latino, Latinx. I'm going to use Latino because I'm so used to that, so I'm going to use that. But either Latino, Latina, Latine, Latinx is this is what I'm talking about. The term Latino comes from base root language, Latin, right? So as you just said, Latin languages, which are French, Italian, Portuguese, and Spanish, right? And there's another one that I cannot remember that is also Latino based. So you have Latino people, Latino Argo people whose languages are Latin based. You have Latino people in Africa, you have Latino people in Europe, you have Latino people in Asia, you have Latino people in America. By the way, we call it America one continent. And that depends on where you go to school. If you have 5 or 7 continents, it's not that we're trying to be smart ass, is that for us, America is from Alaska to Patagonia. And then for you, America is North America, South America. And for Europeans is North America, Central America, South America. And it depends where you went to school. So when I say America, I'm referring to the continent as whole. And when I speak about the United States, I say USA or United States. So you have Latino people in America, in Asia, in Europe, in Africa, on every continent. And the second connotation, because languages are living entities. So now there's a second connotation to Latino that has been born in the United States and is being born out of a cultural thing with Latino Caribbean people, such as Haitians, Cubans, Dominicans, and Puerto Ricans, that are grouping themselves all into one entity of Latino. And I don't see myself as that part of that group because I am not Caribbean. So when people say, "Oh, you're Latina chica," and I'm like, "No, I'm indigenous Mexican." So it is very difficult to navigate these waters, even for us, because you have people in Mexico, Mexicans from Mexico, like myself, who see Mexican Americans and they say, "Those are not Mexicans." So it's very, very complicated. It's a very touchy subject. And let me emphasize once again, if it's not part of the conversation, why bring it up? Right?
Right.
But if you're talking about your ancestry, where your family come from, where you have visited, whatever, and then you're curious and you ask someone that looks like me, so where are you from? And if they tell you Massachusetts, that's all you need to know. But if the chances are, if you ask me, Laura, I will give you the whole story. Like my mom is from Acapulco and my dad is from Tabasco, and I was born in Mexico City. And so I claim Mesoamerican, but I'm also indigenous and I'm part of the diaspora. Every
Well, and
person is going to answer differently.
I love that you said diaspora, because I would love most people in the United States to start thinking of things as a diaspora, because there's a lot of things we don't understand that's happening on our continents, that we have to open our hearts to conditions. And we're pagans here. We love the earth, and we have to identify. Sorry, my puppy dog is wanting to be part of the show real quick. But we have to acknowledge that global climate change is happening, and as it happens, it's going to impact other areas of the globe quicker than here. We're in a much more temperate climate in the United States, but in other parts of the world, including Central America and parts of South America, they're getting hit by it really hard. And I'm not talking about human trafficking, drugs, and war. That's all things that we should consider too. But as pagans, I think we can help be ambassadors and understand that the globe, the Gaia is in danger, and we have to be supportive to all the people in the world, and take in, we can talk about all these different nationalities and all these ways to identify ourselves, but what it comes down to is we have to see the human in all of us, and understand that we're all brothers and sisters and siblings.
And to be very understanding that yes, we gotta be we have to see the human. But when people and people resort to this a lot, like, "Oh, I see people, I don't see color." There's nothing more insulting than that phrase, because that is a privilege phrase that come from people who are lacking melanin. So yeah, you have the privilege to not have to see color because you don't have to see it.
Right.
I cannot take the color of my skin. So I want you to see my color and to understand where I am from or where I come from, as well as I see you and I see your color and I see where you come from. And then we get to know each other and then we see the human. But I don't have the privilege to say, "Oh, I don't see color. We're all human," because I just don't have it. I cannot take the color off of my skin. I present the way I present, and I love this color. I can take it off. So, it's about being, it boils down to be a good, decent human being. People of color, whoever, whichever color, whichever ethnicity, we have unconscious bias. We all have them. We all have judgmental thoughts. We all have prejudices. We all go there. And the point is that when you're there, you take a step back and you remember that behind that color, there is a human.
Exactly. But you do have to acknowledge people for who they are, and if that's part of their identity. And just like going back to what you were saying, with if somebody, you ask where you're from and they say Massachusetts, so obviously they identify as being from Massachusetts, and like you said, leave it there.
Yep.
Being raised in Texas, it's very, there's that's where you learn. If you open your eyes, you learn. You have people who've spent their entire lives and ancestors and ancestors and ancestors on this land. And
Yep.
they may have brown skin color. They may speak Spanish more than they speak English, or may not even speak English. They're
Yep.
just as American as somebody that was born in Michigan.
Yeah.
You know,
You want to hear a funny anecdote?
sure.
A long time ago, my sister, a friend of ours, and myself were at a bar, and we were with the band. Literally, we were with the band that was playing. And when the band had a break, they will come to the table and we will chat in English. And then when they will go out and play, the three of us ladies will speak Spanish. And there was a person behind us that looks like you, Pam. And she was very upset. And then she tapped me on the shoulder. But you know that tap. And back in the day, there was no Karen yet, but I'm gonna call her Karen, So I turn around and I'm like, hey, what up, Karen? And she said English. And I said German. And then she says, English, please. I say, you're welcome. Like what? She's like, well, you are in America. You're supposed to speak English. And I say, well, I am bilingual, so tough rocks. Well, are you even an American? And I say, yes, I am. But you're not a North American. Matter of fact, I am North American. Well, you're not indigenous to this land. And I'm like, are we gonna go there? And then she said, well, you're supposed to speak English. And I say, honey, we were not talking about you. But after this exchange, I cannot promise you anything.
There's a joke I tell. What do you call somebody who speaks 3 languages? Trilingual. What do you call somebody who speaks 2 languages? Bilingual. What do you call somebody who speaks 1 language? American, from the United States. We don't teach people to in this country, in the United States, we don't teach people, we don't teach languages early enough. I started learning, my mother, okay, so let me take a step back and give you a little bit about my identity. I am a true Caucasian, not like the posers from North America, or so Northern Europe. My family comes from the Caucasus Mountains. I am half Turkish. I have the privilege and benefit that my mother was lighter skinned, because people from Turkey can look very Middle Eastern, because that's where we're from. But I am privileged, and I understand that because I passed. I was also privileged because I was raised as somebody from the United States rather than somebody from Turkey. Trust me, I understand how lucky I am as a woman. I love my Turkish family dearly. I am very blessed and honored to have that ancestry, but I do understand the privileges that I've been given. Brought up that I was in Germany. The Turks there get treated very poorly. I had to listen to people badmouth Turks all around me and go like, because that's the thing that we have to understand is you don't know somebody who is from well, here, this is, oh, I don't want to go off on track on this, but basically we're human, because there's so much that you and I can have a conversation with, for ages, because we talk about one of the things, one of the there's all sorts of people that are Latino, Latina, Latinx, Latine. I think I like that one.
Yeah.
I think I'm like, but within the population, you brought up indigenous and you brought up tribes. Here in the United States, with the Westerns that were so big, like in the 50s and the 60s, everybody saw Indians, which are not from India.
Yeah.
But Indians, as with a war paint and the feathers. And it wasn't until we started in this country, teaching that there are different tribes, that we started understanding the differences between a Plains Indian or the Lodge Indians, the Lodge Native American indigenous people in like the northeastern part of what is now the United States, who are responsible for our Constitution, a lot of our Constitution. And people do not honor the people who were in this land before we came. And they don't understand that the people that are in other parts of the continents were also here before the colonizers came.
There,
And go ahead, I'm sorry.
there is such selective memory and selective knowledge on the education system in the United States. I cannot believe, like, I came from a so-called third world country and I know so many things, basic things that we are taught at grammar school, at high school, and a college level. I'm a college graduate, you know, and so, and then to come here and like I speak with college graduates here and I talk about certain topics and they're like, what? Like, but were you specializing in medicine? And I'm like, no, that's just the general stuff that you learn, biology and genetics and all that kind of stuff that it here in the United States is just not taught. But I digress. You were talking about Native Americans, and don't forget that Colorado, California, New Mexico, Arizona, all that was Mexico. So all those tribes and our tribes, we're kin, we're family. We travel, we traded, we were friends, and cacao that was originally drank in southern and central Mexico, and it was served on this particular dishes. They have seen them dishes at Mesa, Arizona, because our people will travel that far north, and then the native people from the north lands will travel to central and to what is Mesoamerica. So we do have a long story of way before this was called America, when it was Turtle Island. They call it Turtle Island, we call it Mesoamerica, but it's the same, right? And our people's, I mean, like every culture in the world, because I can almost hear them already, but they were colonizers and they will fight in each other too. Yeah, wherever you have humans, there's going to be conflict. It's not exclusive of indigenous people or people of color. Every human culture environment will have conflict. But there was a lot of trading and there was a lot of practicing. I mean, I've seen a thank God for TikTok, really, like hi, I'm Laura, I'm addicted to TikTok. You see indigenous people far north.
Right.
Now modern indigenous tribes, right? Because we're not stuck in time. We have cell phones. And they are practicing their indigenous practices, but they have like the Virgin of Guadalupe. And I'm like, wow. So even that, because, you know, it's Coatlicue, is Mother Earth. And I know some purists are going to be like, no, that has nothing to do with paganism. You do you, honey. Let us do us. You do you. And Coatlicue, which is right here, is the one underneath the Virgin of Guadalupe and is one and the same for me, right? And I'm assuming for those native people that incorporate her into their clothing, they see something. I mean, in the goddess religion, on the goddess tradition, we believe Guadalupe to be the true goddess of America. And again, when I say America, I'm speaking continent. So when you have all your ancient goddesses like Athena or others that come from the old world, Coatlicue or Guadalupe or Tonatzin, we consider her the true goddess of America. Though there are many others, obviously you have Pachamama and you have others that are from other cultures. But yeah, and the nativeness, the native status, if you will, because it is regulated here in the United States. A lot of people, you know, have the right, obviously, and the opportunity to say, yes, I'm Native, right? Because I can prove it, blah, blah. And in Mexico, Central and South America, we don't have that. And so because the colonizers did us really, really bad, the closest we have is to say I'm mestizo, which is like, I hate that phrase. I grew up with it, but now I have learned to dislike it because it's basically what I was telling you at the beginning of our recording. You're not your people, but you're not us. So you're something completely different.
A lot of people don't understand that's one of the things the colonizers did. You had like the
Yep.
Castilian, you know, if you watch Zorro with Antonio Banderas, Catherine, so you see when I speak Spanish, it comes out in a German accent. You see what I was talking about? Catherine Zeta-Jones, who's Welsh, by the way. She was the of Spanish blood, but born on this land. And there's all these different, you know, you talk about mystique. I'm not gonna. And then
yeah,
one of
the caste system is horrible, and it's thanks to that caste system that a lot of people like me don't feel confident to reclaim, not in the reclaiming tradition of spirituality, but to reclaim as something that is yours and take it back. Their indigenousness. So when we come to the United States, it's very funny because we come here, and I'm not speaking for every immigrant, I'm speaking for myself and some I know, that we come here, and it's not until we're here that we start seeing what are Native Americans and what are immigrants, and like your consciousness shifts a little. And then you're like, oh, I am indigenous. It's unfortunately until we're removed from the land. And then we can talk about diaspora and all that kind of stuff. But I mean, time is really flying. So should we move into new adventures?
one last thing to recognize, and one of the terms in the caste system that I was taught was an acceptable term, and now I'm almost afraid to say it, but it was mulatto. And that's when you mix African, you know, enslaved people with anyone from, you know, with whether it's Castilian or, you know, anyone. And that's where one of the populations that I feel is having and I'm not from there, so you'll have to tell me if this is something that you see too, but the Afro-Latinos are also struggling with their place in where they, so
unfortunately it's very recent. I think it was 2018, 2019, or maybe even more recent than that the census of Mexico finally recognized the Afro-Latino identity. And so we have Afro-Latino people coming out of the woodworks and being like, coming out of the shadows, actually, saying, yeah, we're here, we have been here for forever, and we are part of Mexico, and we are part of the many threads that weave, which is the Mexican identity. And then they are obviously elsewhere because we have two different Afro cultures that came to Mexico. We have the very few, because there was not a whole lot that came with the transatlantic enslavement. I was going to call it trade, but that's not a trade. The enslaved people that were kidnapped and brought here. Yeah.
Human trafficking.
Yeah. So we have a very, very few. We don't have a whole lot. And you have to understand that Mexico abolished slavery in the 1800s. So I am not very well versed in this, but I don't think we have a whole lot of people enslaved in Mexico because we were enslaved by the Spaniards. So when you call me Hispanic and Spanish, you see what I'm like? It's
No,
disgusting.
trust me. Being a student of history, that's my minor, and living in Texas and having to learn Texas history, which means having to learn a lot of
Yeah.
history of the Mesoamerica too, because Texas was also
But let me
part
tell
of.
you that the second wave that we have of African Americans or Black people, or whichever way they want to identify themselves, I've just learned by Black American who told me that they don't like to be called people of color. She particularly don't like to be called people of color. So it boils down to that. It boils down to, if you absolutely have to know, it's a person by person case. And if somebody tells you, I don't like to be called people of color, so how would you like? And then she told me Black American. That's all I need to know, right? But the second wave of Black people that we have in Mexico came after the American Revolution, because when the American Revolution was happening, a lot of people fled south. And we're in Mexico, we're like, pásale, like, come on, because we don't believe on slavery. So come on, come on, come on. And we ate them. And that is something that has been hidden from culture, because the powers to be, colonizers will colonize, right? And colonizers will use whatever they can to divide and to oppress. And for centuries, they have been grabbing African Americans or Black Americans and Latino people and made us go at each other. And that doesn't work anymore because we are united. So that
Yay!
is not going to happen anymore.
I just want to do a nod to also how paganism, however you want to call it, the indigenous the religions and gods and goddesses of Africa melded into a lot of the Latina beliefs, and you've got things like the Orishas and Santa, yeah, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to make one comment about this, and also into Brazil and Brazil and the Portuguese too. One of my all-time favorite pagan movies is Woman on Top. Have you watched that one?
I don't remember. I remember vaguely, but I don't remember exactly. It's
It's all Maya, and yeah,
what is her name? The actress Cruz, Penelope Cruz?
Penelope Cruz.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
Penelope Cruz, who's not Portuguese or Brazilian,
she's
but
Spanish.
she is
She's Spanish.
Spanish.
Yeah.
And I can go
Spanish
into
as in she is from Spain. See, you're learning.
right. She's
Spanish.
Spanish. There's a really good another movie I like with her called Voltaire, which is really good too. But that one takes she's Brazilian in that in the Woman on Top, and she's a she was given the gift of being a great cook, but she couldn't enjoy sex unless she was on top, and the machismo of her husband is like, I can't do this, and it's very, very pagan. Please, if you get a chance to watch it, and I think it's great. And that brings me to I want you were telling somebody about kind of like May Day, and how like there's the Catholic traditions, and Catholic I always call like the most pagan of Christian beliefs. But there's like a Catholic tradition that overlaps kind of sort of with May. Do you mind bringing that up, and then we can talk a little bit about whatever you want
Actually,
to.
it's so funny that you bring that up, because somebody on Facebook mentioned that they were in Mexico and that they were wondering what kind of Beltane celebrations. And I'm going to make my awful joke. You can laugh, but you cannot make the joke because you're not Mexican. I'm looking at the camera so the people watching know. You can laugh. It's funny, but you cannot make the joke because you're not Mexican. So here comes the joke. Mexico is the most pagan country in the world. Don't tell the Mexicans. They think they're Catholic. Haha. So the Catholicism that came to Mexico by the colonizers was heavily infused with pagan DNA. And so a lot of traditions, culture that was pagan is intertwined with Catholicism. And then we celebrate, it's called El Día de la Santa Cruz, the Sacred Cross Day, I guess. And what you will see on a lot of construction sites and lots of churches, you will see a Catholic cross, right? Like the Jesus cross. And say the cross is like this. And you will have a wreath of flowers that rests right on top of the cross. Yeah.
A woman on
And,
top.
and a woman on top. And that happens on May 3rd. So May 3rd, not May 1st, but May 3rd. May 3rd is El Día de la Santa Cruz, the Sacred Cross Day. And you'll see it, like I said, especially construction sites, because I think it's mostly construction workers. It's like their sacred day, because carpentry, because working with wood. So that is fun to see. And then as a baby pagan, when I was a baby pagan, that I only knew about Greek, Roman, and Greek and Roman mythologies and paganism. And then I come to the United States and I start learning about all the Celtic and Druid and all that other stuff. And then I see the maypole, and then I remember about the Santa Cruz, and I'm like, more funny that you mention it. And I was talking about that with that person that was in Mexico, because I turned my calendar to the month of May, my Llewellyn witches calendar. And I haven't read it yet, but Jaime Gironés, who wrote the book, the little Llewellyn's little book of Day of the Dead, Jaime Gironés, he wrote something about Fiesta de la Santa Cruz, and it's in the month of May. And I'm like, there is something about El Día de la Santa Cruz. I haven't read it, but I know he's talking about that because I just read the first line. When I saw the name Jaime Gironés, I'm like, what he wrote about in May? And I just read the first line, and it says about La Santa Cruz. So I think it's very peculiar how the traditions just move through the planet. But the other one is in Mexico, we have El Día del Niño, which is Children's Day, right? And I don't know if there is any connotation or if there's any pagan roots to Children's Day, but it's on Walpurgis Night, which you are going to teach me how to say that. Walpurgis Nacht?
Walpurgisnacht.
Walpurgis Nacht.
Nacht. It's
Nacht.
Nacht.
Walpurgis
That's
Nacht.
Those people who don't speak German to get that.
Yeah, okay, so well, Walpurgis Night or Walpurgis Nacht is on April 30th, which is El Día del Niño, the Children's Day. And I'm like, fairies, witches, flying in brooms and misbehaving and being mischievous. And Children's Day, it sounds a lot like it's the same thing, but anyway.
It is funny. It is funny. And that brings me to what I try to focus on is celestial. You know, we get people who, you know, well, anyhow, there's a lot of crossover, but it's very hard not to take I try. I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time finding the words here. I try my best to honor the roots of where things came from. And understand that paganism, as we become more of a global pagan faith or group of patchwork of faiths, to honor where you got things from and not try to I hate to use the term appropriation because it's so weighted and it's so contentious, but just acknowledge and honor where things came from, because you know I'm a Scott Irish Halloween, Samhain had a certain meaning there, but it has an entirely different meaning in the United States.
Yep.
Just like, okay, here's what, hopefully this doesn't set things off. The Irish don't necessarily celebrate St. Patrick's Day, but we use it here in America to drink beer, green beer, and get drunk. My understanding is Cinco de Mayo is not, yeah.
Nothing. Cinco de Mayo is a bank holiday. It's one of those that the bank is closed. That's it. There was a incident that happened when the French tried to invade Mexico, and they went to this town, it's called Puebla, and the Mexican army defeated the French. Of course, the French, because everybody, again, with the colonizer mind, the French from the first world, they came to Mexico thinking like, oh, these third world country people are not going to know what's what. And then it turns out that they lost, and they went back to France with their tail between their legs. And then they came back later and bring us our very own king that we ever had in Mexico, Maximiliano, who was later executed by the Mexican army. But, you know, it happens. This is like that because, you know. But anyway, the French lost, and the people from Puebla won. And so it's celebrated on May 5th, that the La Batalla de Puebla, the Battle of Puebla. But it's not, I mean, it is honored, it is a holiday, but it's not like, oh my God, let's all celebrate and go out and march and do these parades. That's September 16th, that's on Independence Day, that we do this huge parade. But here in the United States, people just need an excuse to drink and to be disrespectful with our culture. And they are, so I always like to talk, Pam, about the things that are not necessarily good, and then how you can learn and make it good. So you don't wear a sombrero, you don't look at people and try to practice your 3 words in Spanish. You don't speak Spanish to people unless you're invited to, because otherwise it's highly disrespectful. And don't, for the love of God, go to eat Taco Bell. So how do you do that better? How do you celebrate Cinco de Mayo actually in a respectful way? You learn about the culture. You share what you learn about the culture. And if you must have Mexican food, go to the traditional, authentic Mexican restaurant run by mom and pop. Don't go to Taco Garbage Bell, because that is trash and it's not Mexican. And if they have a sombrero at the restaurant, and if they are having a Cinco de Mayo special, and they invite you to wear the sombrero so you can take your photo at the restaurant, go for it. You're a patron of the restaurant. It is appropriate at the moment culturally that you put on your sombrero because you're a Mexican restaurant eating Mexican food. But to be walking around on the streets with a sombrero and a sarape, and you don't know what a sarape is, you don't know the cultural intricacies and the nuances of the weaving of the sarape, and it's not even authentic. If you want a sombrero, you want a sarape, go to an authentic Mexican store. Find your Mexican local communities and buy stuff from Mexican artisans. And if you don't have a Mexican cultural artisan or something, I have learned that every people in the United States are assigned a Mexican friend. If you don't have your Mexican friend assigned yet, I am it. Hit me up. All Mexican artisans, you know, because we didn't stay frozen in time. We have Etsy and we have stores. So you can buy authentic Mexican made by Mexicans in the diaspora like us. And just to touch on something really quickly, Pam. Cultural appropriation, yes, it's a whole can of worms. Rule of thumb, if you're not selling it, if you're not being benefited by it, if you're not making money out of the culture is not appropriation. If you want to integrate it into your practice as a spiritual practice, learn what you're doing. I'm tired of people talking about Santa Muerte saying like, it's like Cali. No, it's not. No, it's not. It's not like Cali. And even if it was like Kali, if you're not Hindu, why are you practicing with Kali? But anyway, I digress. And you can quote me on this, the difference between appropriation and appreciation is education. Educate yourself.
I love that. I love that. You and I can have a other conversation about that, but I want to, we got off on this. I love having conversations with you. I thank you so much for what your work is, and being willing to educate people, and to be willing to help people understand that we're all weaving this fabric together, and especially with paganism, because we have to figure out what it means to us and what it means to the people around us. I wanted to give you a real quick chance to shout out about how do you make money? Because you talked about TikTok and your Venmo. And how can people,
we don't have to do it super quick because I know we've been interrupted a million times and I have a few more minutes. So we can hang out for a little longer if you can hang out for a little longer. How do I make my money? Okay, so I'm a tarot reader by trade. I'm a witch for hire. You can hire me for readings. I mostly do my living by doing tarot readings. So you can find me on Instagram as Magia Cerati, MagiaCerati, or you can just put my name, Laura González. I should pop up. I bought the stupid blue check mark so people don't get confused because all the troll is trolling on Instagram. Or you can find me on Facebook as Tarot by Laura González, and you can book me for readings. I do readings online. I do readings in person. If you're in Chicago, you can come see me in person at any time. If you're not in Chicago, we can do this. We can do online readings. And I do online readings, tarot readings, dream interpretation, Reiki. I'm a Reiki master teacher too. And those are the services, just consultations. I do another, I'm the only bilingual certified freedom healing practitioner. Freedom healing is like Akashic records and past life regressions have a baby type of thing. It's very kinesthetic and it's very healing. So I do all that, but I also teach a lot online. And by the time this is seen by people, I will be getting ready to teach creativity spells, which is on May 14th. And you can go online and you can purchase your ticket. Literally, it's called Creativity Spells. You can find it on Eventbrite, or you can find it on all my socials. My link tree is Magia Cerati as well. And I've been teaching a spell series of classes. So in January, we did candle spells, February, love spells, March, cleansing spells. Then we did prosperity spells, and right now we're doing creativity spells, and then we're going to do sun spells, then moon spells, then ancestor spells, and then shadow work spells, and so on. So it's a whole year series, and the classes are on demand, so you can just hit me up and I send you the link and you can purchase the class. They're $25. I'm not charging an arm and a leg for the classes because A, I love doing the classes, and B, I'm building my video, how do you say?
Like library or
Video
archive?
library of classes. I also have an available class on tarot that is a 6-class series, and they're also $25, and you can buy all the whole package and then watch the class on your own time. The tarot that I teach is healing, is the Jungian approach to tarot. Therapeutic, but I cannot say I'm a therapeutic tarot reader because I'm not a therapist, but it has a therapeutic healing curandera approach to it. And I also teach private lessons. So you can hire me for one-on-one lessons. I teach a course that is a 5-month course on tarot. It's an in-depth tarot, from what is tarot to how to open your own public practice successfully without scamming people. And it's a 5-month course, and that is a one-on-one private lesson with Laura González. And I also tailor classes for teachers and for other people who are doing this kind of stuff. I once had an empath who is a nurse who, and I have her permission to share this, by the way. So she's a nurse and she works with people who have, they're mentally disabled. And because she's an empath, so she was having such a hard time. And so I tailor my Develop Your Psychic Abilities class. I back engineer that to do the opposite. And her own words, she's gone to therapists, she's gone to psychiatric therapy, and nothing had helped her as much as this little course. I think we did 4 classes, and she has find peace, and she has learned to control a little bit of that empathy, not to be so open. That was so much fun, because to back engineer your psychic classes is fun. I also have, and I do work with lots of people whom are sex workers, sex entertainers, people who do this kind of work where they're very exposed. And it's my honor and pleasure to work with them. For I don't judge people. I'm here to love them, not to judge them. So I work with them, and I have work on like recovery from traumatic events and all that kind of stuff. So you could say I'm a trauma informed psychic therapy person, but again, I'm not a therapist. I'm not a professional in anything. I'm just a tarot reader and a witch. But I do have a lot of training. I have more than 12. I have like 14 years of training on that kind of stuff. One of my teachers and mentor and dearest friend, Christian Ortiz, he's a psychologist. So I've learned from him for 14 years. He's been my teacher. So I know all these things. The son is so funny. I know all these things. I practice all those things. And I also have training as a death doula. I work a lot with people who are on bereavement, people who are mourning the loss of their loved ones. I am not a death doula that works with the dying. I'm a death doula that works with the surviving people. And I also have intensive and extensive training on suicide prevention. I'm certified. I have certifications. 3 times I have had my certification with them to work on suicide prevention and to work on emergency situations. So if you ever feel that you are having suicidal thoughts and you don't want to call 911, or you don't want to call the talk number, you can reach me out, and I will love to help you, because suicide sucks. So I do all of those things. I'm also a minister and a teacher, and I don't know what else do I do. I'm writing now, but what I do for a living is the tarot and all the other healing traditions. So that's where you can hire me to pay me to do the other things that I do. And what are the other things that I do, you may ask? Podcast production, podcast management on the station. I'm also part of 2 video blogs. With Mystic Chat video blog with Chris Allen and Frater Aaron. And I'm also on Storybook with Frater Aaron and other guests that he has. It's a video blog. It's very nice. He's talking about myths as our ethical guide in our magical life. So it's very much fun. and check it out. It's Storybook on YouTube. He's gonna be mad at me if I say the wrong name, but yeah, it's Storybook. And you can find him on Instagram as well. So you want to hire me to do your readings, your tarot, your past life regression, or your Reiki, so that I can then dedicate time to do all the things that I do for free that you can just get for free, which is all the podcasts on English and Spanish. I produce, coordinated, and announce all the stuff for Circle Sanctuary, CSMP, the Circle Sanctuary Network podcast. I do the 2 video blogs, and once in a while I've been invited to the Witchy World podcast, I think it's called. Magical Witchy World. Magical Witchy World. I have been part of a panel on that one for racial equality as well. So there are 2 that are floating around on YouTube, and you can watch them. And I don't know, I teach a lot on Facebook,
Oh,
and I teach a
you
lot.
gotta take, this is for the parliament. We're like trying to raise money for the
Oh,
parliament.
yes.
And you're going to
Yes,
tell us about the parliament.
of course. Oh, I'm so thrilled. Okay, so you asked me a question, I tell you the whole story. So I'm gonna tell you the whole story. I was in the 2020 parliament that was online, 2021, I think. I can't remember what year it was, but it was a few years ago. And it was done online, and I'm like, score, I can get into it because I don't travel a whole lot. I live in this room, like you are on my computer room. This is where I reside 90% of my time. Or scratching my dog's belly on the living room. But anyway, I was part of the online parliament, and then it was announced that 2023 it was going to be in Chicago, and I'm like, I have to be there because I'm from Chicago. So I applied, and I am so thrilled to tell you that 3 things in which I applied to participate were approved and accepted. So I'm going to be doing Festival of the Dead. Let me read this so I don't mess it up. Festivals of the Dead is going to be on August 17th, but I'm going to tell you about that one last. Let me tell you first the other 2. On August 17th, I'm going to be on a panel of Pagan Voices of Chicago alongside Twyla York, Chris Allen. Oh my goodness, I forgot the other 2 people that are going to be on the panel. Please forgive me. I can't remember their names, but there are 2 more people. So it's going to be a panel of like 5 people. And I'm going to be one of them. So Twyla York, Chris Allen, and myself, and 2 other wonderful Chicago people that I have forgotten their names. Please forgive me. And we're going to talk about all kinds of stuff, paganism in Chicago. So that's going to be so much fun. That's going to be on the 17th at 8 o'clock in the morning. If you are there and you see me and you say hi, I promise you I'm awake.
You and I get that.
For those who don't know, let me tell you, I sleep from 4 o'clock to 11 o'clock, and then my life begins at noon, and my day ends at 4 o'clock in the morning. It has been like that since I was 12 years old. I'm sorry. And now that my husband works in the night shift, it's even more. Even our dog sleeps all morning, and he's awake at 3 o'clock in the morning. So anyway, that panel is going to be at 8 o'clock in the morning, but I will be there. Belson, I will be there. I promise you I will go to bed early so I am awake. And Twyla York already promised copious amounts of Diet Coke, so I'll be awake. So that's the one. The other one I'm going to be doing is on August 15th. We're going to be talking about women in podcasting. And that is a panel in which I will be with Deborah Rose, Reverend Selena Fox, Reverend Deborah Rose, and myself. We're going to be talking about the need of women voices in podcasting, the need of podcasting on the world, the need of connection via technology and how important it is, how important it was before COVID, how important and relevant it is now after COVID, and how a lot of services and a lot of places are going hybrid and they're now going back, Circle being one of them. And we're going to be talking about Circle Sanctuary Network podcast. We're going to be talking about all the teams. So you'll be there, Pam. And that is going to be one interesting thing that happened on August 15th. Then I have another 8 o'clock thing. The ceremony for Planet Earth. I'll be part of that ceremony. I'll be with Reverend Selena Fox and other various ministers and people that are connected with Circle Sanctuary or Chicago or the pagan community at large. I don't know exactly whom are all participating, but I know I'm going to be part of that. And obviously it's led by Reverend Selena Fox, so that's going to be so much fun. When I received the time, I was like, Selena's going to be at 8 o'clock in the morning. And she's like, so are you going to go? I'm like, of course I'm going to go. But, you know.
Oh, no, we froze up. We froze up as you started saying, Selena, it's going to be at 8 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah. Yeah. But you know what happens to me when I'm sleep deprived? I act as if I was high.
I'm going to have editing this one.
Say that again?
So you said you froze up when you started saying, Selena, it's at 8 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, I call her and I said, Selena, it's gonna be at 8 o'clock in the morning. And then she asked me, are you gonna make it? And I said, of course I'm gonna make it. I'm gonna be a little goofy, I think, but I'm gonna make it. So I was telling you what happens to me when I'm sleep deprived is I act goofier than my normal goofy. You know.
Drunk.
Yeah, yeah. And so the crown jewel for me is gonna be the Festival of the Dead, Festivals of the Dead. Reverend Kern Green, Reverend Selena Fox, and myself speaking about remembering our death from Christian, Catholic, pagan, and indigenous points of view. Obviously, this is based on my Day of the Dead classes that I've done like 1.5 million. If you've never watched me talking about Day of the Dead, just Google Laura González Day of the Dead, and then something will pop up. There's a bunch of videos out there or podcasts.
You've done a podcast with me at least twice on that.
Yep. And so we're going to be talking about that. And I am so thrilled that it got accepted. And it's going to be on August 17th at 5 o'clock. And those are the 4 things so far I know I'm going to be part of. There might be something else that is on the works, but I'm not going to talk about it now because it's not, the ink ain't dry on that one yet. But there's a possibility of one more thing. And then of course I'm going to be like a social butterfly all over everybody. So if you see me, come and ask me, we can take a photo, we can talk, we can chat, and then I can run to the next thing. But especially if you see me and we know each other on Facebook. I have 1,500 people on Facebook, so names are not something that I'm extremely good at because I try to remember 1,500 people. But if we know each other on Facebook and you see me in person, please come by and tell me, hi, I'm so-and-so on Facebook. Can we take a photo? And I would love to take a photo and chat and give you a hug if you like hugs. And please don't touch my hair because people lately have been touching my hair a lot. Don't touch my hair, please. Yeah, I don't know.
Hey, Reverend Laura González, don't touch her hair, the BlueWitch. It's beautiful. It's blue. Don't touch her hair.
Don't touch. I mean, touch the hair, lose the hand. You don't want to go there.
That's kind of the conversation we started with. Is you ask people what they're comfortable with, and I don't want people coming up to me and touching my hair.
No,
you know?
I don't think, this is another thing, Pam, and I think it got accentuated after the pandemic, but it's important that we speak about it. autonomy and respect, bodily autonomy. We are teaching little children, right? Don't let people touch you, and don't let people touch you here, and don't let people touch you there. Why are those rules not applicable when you're an adult? And I swear to you, Pam, I swear to you, I know that a lot of people do it out of love. I have a heavy, it's a trauma response. And the chances are, if you touch my hair, I'm going to punch you in the face. So don't do it. You don't touch people, period. You don't touch people of color's hair, period. If you don't know why, an easy Google search will tell you why. You don't pet people. People aren't animals. Oh, your hair is so soft. Can I pet it? No. No, you cannot pet it. It's just
serious. Okay, it is serious.
Yeah.
I'm a person with a disability, and we were talking about labels and all, and things that set people off. Do not ever call me differently abled. Do not ever call me differently abled. You can tell what that does to me. You can say that I'm disabled. I'm okay with that, but that depends on the person and the context. But I like saying person first language, person with a disability. It's a lot more empowering to a person, and I really want to remove the stigma of disability, because a lot of people who have disabilities will freak out if you call them disabled or people with disability. And we need to start, the future is disabled. There's a book I have, it's right here, it says the future is disabled. So it's got to be true. But that's one of the areas that I work a lot on. Go ahead.
And you know what? And also to remember that not all disabilities are visible.
Right.
I'm also a person with a disability, but it's not visible. And there are moments when I'm feeling fantastic, and I can be trekking up and down Circle Sanctuary, that little mound, and there are days when I can be dancing and singing and at the bar dancing and whatnot, and there are days that I cannot move.
Yeah.
And also I have people coming to me like, oh, you have MS, right? Oh, you have this, right? Oh, you have that's not on your business, honey. I just take the information that I'm sharing. I'm a person with a disability. There are days that I feel very good. There are days that I don't feel good. It's not the guessing game. You don't get a prize if you guess what my disability is. Like, it's nobody's business.
My thing is you heard of people having resting bitch face or resting witch face, however you want to call it, that they always look like they're frowning. I'm always going to look like I'm upbeat. I have resting, smiling cherub face, and I have this energy, which there are times that I wish I didn't have it, but just because I have this type of energy doesn't mean I have the energy to do all sorts of other things.
Yeah.
Just right now talking to you, I'm animated. I used to be a radio disc jockey. It was my job to be this way, and it's a switch you turn off and turn on. There are times at the microphone I'm like, ugh.
Yep.
So
yeah.
But walking across the room right now, that's going to be a big chore for me. So meet people where they are is basically ask them where they are and ask them what they need.
I think the rule of thumb, Pamela, for everything that we kind of touched today, which has been a fantastic conversation. I love you. I just love you. The bottom line is respect. If you wouldn't talk to your mama or to your grandma or to your lover the very words that you're about to tell me, then don't use them. Like, I don't know, like, even with the fat phobia, like, when I say sometimes, like, oh, I feel so pretty, when I say I'm fat.
Oh, no, you're not. And I say, oh, you're blind? because
And
I'm
people will say, I will say I'm fat, and people will say, but you're so pretty. Like, I didn't say I was ugly. I'm just fat. Like, you are tall. Like, another person is short. Like, another person is thin. It's just a way of being. And it's not a consequence of anything. It's not a symptom of anything. It's not a consequence of anything. I don't owe anybody any explanations. I'm fat. And guess what? I'm vegan. Yes, I'm vegan and I'm fat. We exist. I'm a unicorn.
I also have a very strict diet, and I have to stick to it, and I'm fat. And oh my gosh, this is a whole other conversation that you and I need to have for other people. It is not cool when somebody when I say I'm fat and somebody says, "No, you're not." You are minimizing me, you're gaslighting me, you're invalidating my experience.
Yeah.
You're invalidating who I am by telling me one thing that I am is not acceptable to you.
Yeah.
That's
And,
what that's one area that you and I.
and I hope, like, I am confident that people who are watching this are people who respect the ways of life, and they're pagans, and they are understanding of diversity. But there might be people that are feeling certain kind of way for whatever, any of the many things that we talk about, right? That they might be feeling some kind of reaction.
Mhm.
What you do with that reaction is you go deep within yourself.
Shadow
And
work.
you ask yourself, why am I having a visceral reaction to this woman saying blah, blah, blah? What is it that is being pointed at me? Why am I feeling attacked? Why am I feeling uneasy about it? And then you do that work, because all of us is gonna mess up. All of us are gonna say something wrong, are gonna act the wrong way, are gonna touch somebody inadvertently. One of my dearest friends, and I love her to death, and we were goofing around, and then um we were goofing around, and I smacked her on the butt, and she turned around and she told me we're not kind of friends. God, did I feel bad. I felt so bad, Pam. I felt so guilty. I profusely apologized to her, and she told me, no, 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 it's okay. I'm just letting you know we're not that kind of, our
The
friendship is
intensity is
not
very
that.
intense, very
Yeah.
and
And she said, I'm just letting you know that's not how we're friends. And I'm like, you know what? Noted. And I learned right quick that I could see that person being smacked in the butt by other person, and it's a playful, friendly thing that they have, but she didn't have that with me. And
right.
I felt terrible. I felt like trash. I felt like I was a roach that's been stepped on. And then I'm like, you know what? It's not about my discomfort. It's about how I disrespected myself, and I disrespected them by acting in a way that was not welcomed. And I'm telling you this so we understand that we all are going to mess up. All of us are going to mess up at one time or another. And also, people who have been on the receiving end of oppression have a harder time setting up boundaries.
Yeah.
So for us to set up a boundary, it takes 3 times as much work as it takes a non-minority person to set up a boundary. So when we set up a boundary, please be respectful of it, because it takes us, it's as hard of a job for us to keep the boundary than for you to respect it. It really
Right.
is. Yeah.
And on the other end of the spectrum is when somebody like me who's short has a baby face. I have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. Baby face is part of it. I am closer to 60 than I am to 50. Just put it there. I am closer to 60 than I am to 50. And people want to discount because of how I present myself, my authority, my power. Own your power. Own
Yeah,
your power. I
absolutely.
just one last an analogy. I love crystals. Quartz crystals are my favorite, and I love when you look at them and there's like that rainbow inside. It's beautiful. I get lost in those rainbows. I think that that is the most beautiful part of a crystal, and they're caused by flaws and breaks.
Mhm.
So
Absolutely. Absolutely.
sometimes it's the wounds in us that makes us the most beautiful.
Hey, I want to say to the people behind this, to the people behind this space, obviously to you, because I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you. Thank you so much for inviting me to be part of this noble cause. I hope I get to see every single one of the people who is behind this. What is it? The Teleton? The
The road
Teleton?
to Parliament. The road
The
to the
road,
Parliament.
the road to the Parliament, so that we might all converge in a good. And I know I said I will open my home to everybody here in Chicago, but my apartment is about this big. So we might not meet here, but let us meet. I am, this is dangerous to say, I'm 10 minutes away from the McCormick place. I'm literally 10 minutes away from where it's gonna be. So, you know, it's it feels almost like if I'm welcoming you home here in Chicago. And by then, I would have been in Chicago longer than I have lived in Mexico, which is some sort of milestone that is bittersweet, but more sweet. I'm so looking forward for August 11th because I will be longer here in Chicago. Um, and when people ask me where you're from, I just say I'm from Chicago. I love the city. There's a meme that says I wasn't born here, but I got here as soon as I could. And I am definitely convinced that I was born to be from Chicago. So it is my pleasure to welcome you all to my wonderful city. On top of everything, it's such a beautiful city. Give yourself time and give yourself a chance to also look at the city, not just the inside of the McCormick place, but if possible, go walk by the pier, one of the very many beaches that we have. 31st Beach is very close to the McCormick place, the museums, etc. And there are piers all over the place that you can walk, and there's nothing most beautiful than the skyline of the city of Chicago at night. I just love her. I'm so in love. I love Mexico City, don't get me wrong. But Chicago has, I mean, it's the birthplace of the skyscraper. Like, what else do you need? You know, it's a wonderful city. And I hope we have good weather. By August, we should have not too hot, not too cold. And hit me up. If you see me around, just stop me and hey, like I saw you at the Corellian thing. And I'm like, yeah, and you're the one that went. That's my answer when somebody says I saw you on Instagram or I follow you on Facebook. I'm like, oh, you're the one. You know. Thank you for inviting me. This has been so much fun.
I love you so much. And everything you've done is you. I'm proud to be part of that's we have to lift each other up. It all comes to lifting each other up. And thank you for welcoming us to your town. My mother is Turkish. She spent more of her life here in the United States. So I get what you're saying. So, and we're all inhabitants of this earth. So we have to love each other and love the earth and honor and respect.
Yeah. And please hire me. Please hire me. Please come to my online classes. Please donate if you will, BlueWitch and Venmo, so I can continue doing the work that don't pay, like Parliament and podcasting and classes. And of course, the coffee break. Of course, the coffee break. I forgot. Coffee break with Rev Laura Monday, Wednesday, and Friday-ish. on my Facebook, and I pull cards at random 2 to 3 times a week, and those are absolutely free. So you know, let's lift each other, like you say, amplify each other's voices, and keep the good work. Keep talking the talk and walking the walk, being the pagans that we say we are, loving our earth and loving each other. You know.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.